All right, let's talk about a really weird data breach. It's a huge one, and it left millions of people scratching their heads, asking the exact same question. How in the world did a company I've never even heard of get a hold of my most personal info?
First, let's just get a sense of the scale here. 10.5 million. That's a massive number. We're talking about one of the biggest healthcare breaches of the year, affecting 10.5 million people. But the crazy part, the real twist, isn't just the number.
It's this. Have you ever heard of a company called Conduent? Yeah, probably not. And that's the whole point. If you were one of those 10.5 million people, that name would mean absolutely nothing to you. And yet, they had your data, a ton of it. And, well, they lost it.
So just imagine this for a second. You get a letter in the mail, you look at the return address, and you don't recognize the company at all, but you open it anyway. And inside, it tells you that your social security number, your private medical records, all of it has been stolen. It's that stomach drop feeling.
And you're just sitting there thinking, Conduent? Who the heck is Conduent? You've never bought anything from them, never signed up for their services. So how is this even possible? It's not just a breach, it feels, I don't know, weirder. Like your data was stolen by a complete stranger. And this is exactly what millions of people went through. Okay, so let's get into it. Section 1, the invisible partner. The answer to this whole mystery comes down to this thing called business associate risk. It sounds kind of corporate, but it's the key to understanding how a company you have no relationship with can end up with your data.
So what exactly is a business associate? Well, think of them like the backstage crew for big corporations. They're not the stars of the show, but they do all the essential stuff behind the scenes. Processing documents, handling mail, making sure payments are right. They're the invisible gears that make the whole thing work.
And this is where it all clicks. See, you don't know Conduent, but I guarantee you know who they work for. They're the backstage crew for giants like Blue Cross Blue Shield, Humana, Primera, all these household names you actually trust and do business with. And that's the kicker, isn't it? You give your information to your insurance company, and you figure, okay, they've got it, it's safe. But that's not what happens. They turn around and hand that data off to partners like Conduent to do the processing. So without ever knowing it, you're in a business relationship with this other company. And that means you inherit all of their security problems.
All right, Section 2, the crime. So now we know who Conduent is, let's dig into what actually went down. And this wasn't some quick hit. The bad guys were in their system for a long time. Just check out this timeline. The hackers first got access back on October 21st. Nobody even noticed they were there until January 13th. That's almost 3 whole months they were just poking around. And then it took until April for the public to be told. That's a huge window of time where people's data was out there and they had absolutely no clue. So what happens when news like this finally breaks? Well, exactly what you'd expect. A flood of lawsuits. We're talking class action suits piling up almost immediately. This thing went from being a cybersecurity problem to a full-blown legal and financial nightmare for the company. Okay, so for Section 3, let's talk about the how. How did the hackers actually pull this off? You might think it was a simple weak password or a firewall issue, but no. The real problem was something a lot more fundamental, something called the encryption gap.
So here's the deal with data security. There are basically 3 states your data can be in. First, data at rest. That's when it's just sitting on a server. It's usually encrypted. Then there's data in transit, when it's being sent over the internet. Also usually encrypted. But then there's the tricky one, data in use. This is the moment a computer is actively working with the data. And to do that, it has to decrypt it, leaving it completely in the clear.
And this quote from Dynamo Software really hits the nail on the head. They said, the issue wasn't Conduent's firewalls or their monitoring. Nope, it was a fundamental architecture problem. It's about how we secure data when it's actively being used. That was the weak link in the chain. So let's break that down. Imagine Conduent's computer system doing its job, right? It's processing a medical claim or checking if someone is eligible for a service. At that exact moment, for that split second, your social security number, your medical info, it was all just sitting there as plain text, unencrypted. So when the hackers got in, they didn't have to break any codes. The vault was wide open. And that brings us to Section 4, the fallout. As you can imagine, a vulnerability like that doesn't just go away quietly. It creates this huge ripple effect that hits everyone involved. Just look at the laundry list of problems this caused. We're talking more than 9 federal class action lawsuits, state regulators launching investigations,
The huge cost of just telling 10.5 million people what happened, not to mention offering 2 years of credit monitoring. And the damage to their reputation? You can't even put a price on that.
So what about the big-name companies, the ones who hired Conduent in the first place? Their first instinct was to say, hey, this wasn't our breach. But, that excuse doesn't really fly. The law is pretty clear. When you entrust a vendor with your customers' data, you can't just wash your hands of it. You're still on the hook.
And this last quote really ties it all together perfectly. It says, "The vulnerability was about data being kept in the clear by a vendor people didn't even know about." That's it, right there. It's the technical problem and the business problem all wrapped up in one sentence.
So, this whole thing kind of pulls back the curtain on a hidden world of data sharing we never see. And it leaves you with a really uncomfortable question, doesn't it? How many other invisible partners are out there right now holding your data? And what kind of risks are they taking with it?